Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. It is I, your old friend Dale Howard. Our public webinar today from Sensei is called Importing a Project Schedule from an Excel Workbook. I am the Director of Education for Sensei Project Solutions, currently one of only 59 Microsoft Project MVPs in the entire world. That stands for Most Valuable Professional, and that is an honorary title I've now possessed for the last 15 years. I'm up for renewal. I hope I get renewed for another year. Currently the co-author of 21 books on Microsoft Project, Project Server, and Project Online. Interestingly enough, the very first book in which I was the co-author was the book Special Edition using Microsoft Project 2002, published by Q. That's QUE was the name of the publisher. And in that book, I actually wrote two chapters, the first of which was importing and exporting project data with other applications. So many years later, I come back to that topic. By the way, I've used every version of Microsoft Project since version 4.0 for Windows 95, used every version of the Microsoft PPM tool since it was introduced originally under the name of Project Central in the year 2000. And then lastly, I am broadcasting live from my office in my home here in Ellisville, Missouri. That is a west suburb of St. Louis, smack dab in the middle of the USA. A little bit about my employer. We are Sensei Project Solutions. We were Microsoft's PPM Partner of the Year winner in 2014, a finalist in both 2015 and 2017. I've got a typo on my PowerPoint, it looks like. We've done over 500 deployments of Microsoft Project PPM tools. That's Project Server and Project Online. Trained over 5,000 users in various roles. We do truly have a global impact because we have clients all over the world. What I think makes our company unique is both the depth and the breadth of the products and services that we offer. I won't go through all of these, you can read, but I would say this: if you are already a client of ours, we do thank you for your business. And if you're not a client of ours yet, we would invite you kindly to consider us when you're ready to select a PPM partner. All right, so let's get into the meat of the presentation today. There is a tool in Microsoft Project. It's called the Import Export Wizard. And what this tool offers you is the possibility of two-way data transfer between Microsoft Project and Microsoft Excel. So for example, you can export a Microsoft Project schedule to an Excel workbook. You can also import data from an Excel workbook into a Microsoft Project schedule. Now, our interest is the second one, but amazingly enough, in a moment, I'm going to show you the first one as well. So here's the focus of our presentation today. When you're importing data from an Excel workbook, you can actually do any of the following actions. You can create a new project schedule from the Excel workbook data. You can also append the Excel data to an existing project. And you can also merge the Excel data into an existing project. And in that case, what most people want to do is to take progress, which has been entered by team members, into an Excel workbook, and then to be able to import that into the Microsoft Project schedule. Now, before you attempt to import data from Excel, there are a couple of things we recommend you do first. Number one, we recommend that you open any existing Microsoft Project schedule and then we recommend you export that Microsoft project schedule data into an Excel workbook using what is known as the Project Excel template. Now from there, what you can do is you can open the exported Excel workbook and study how the exported data looks. It's very important that you study the column names and also the data types in those columns. Then, based on what you have learned from your study in step 3, you need to set up your existing Excel workbooks so that they match what Microsoft Project is expecting. We believe that if you follow this process, it will help you to structure your Excel workbook to give you the best results when importing the data from Excel into Microsoft Project. Now, one of the things I've done in the PowerPoint is I've given you the exact directions on how to do the 3 actions I'm about to, actually, technically the 4 actions I'm about to present. So the first thing I want to show you is how to export project data to Excel using the Project Excel template. So I won't walk through all these steps in the PowerPoint. I think it would be better if I just demonstrated this for you in Microsoft Project and in Excel. So in Microsoft Project, let me go ahead and get a sample file open. And the example that I'm looking for is, all right, then I don't see it where I wanted to see it, so let me find it. It's called North Central Region Market Research. So this is an actual project that I created for this webinar. And what I'd like to do is export it to Excel so we can see what the resulting Excel workbook looks like. So here's how to do the export. We'll go to File, and then there's a tab in the Backstage called Export. And on the Export page, there's an item called Save Project as File. And in the Save Project as File list of commonly used file types, we'll find a Microsoft Excel workbook. So I'll select that, and I'll click Save As. Now, what Microsoft Project will always do, it'll always default to the folder where the MPP file is located. So that's just fine with me, but it won't give a name by default, so you do have to type that in. So I'm just going to call this North Central Region Market Research, and then we'll click Save, and then bingo. Up comes the Export Wizard. Now in the Export Wizard, it always starts with a welcome page. Then I'll click Next. Then it wants to know what format of the data do I want to export. Here's the key. Here's this Project Excel template. What this is, it's just simply a pre-formatted selection of task, resource, and assignment fields. That'll give you what it looks like when you do the export. And then I'll click Finish. And bingo, the export happens. Now, what I'm actually going to do next is I'm going to open, not the one that was just exported, but I want to open an exact duplicate that is formatted to make it a little easier to read. And by that, I mean I've widened the columns. So let me show you what the export actually looks like. Now, here's what you'll discover. The Project Excel template will end up giving you 3 worksheet tabs called Task Table, Resource Table, Assignment Table. On the Task Table tab, you can see it included columns like ID, Active, Task Mode, Task Name, Duration, Start, Finish, Predecessors, Outline Level, that's a very important column, and Notes. Now, one of the things I want to stress to you right away, because I see this question occasionally in the Microsoft Project User Forum, people ask, is there any way that when I export, that I can get it to not give me the time of day. Notice at 8 a.m., over here 5 p.m. The answer is no. You can't stop Microsoft Project from doing that, because the truth is, even though you can't see it, every date in Microsoft Project, start date and finish date, they all include a time of day, but that's normally hidden. What we're seeing is the data is exposed here in columns F and G. So no, you cannot restrict Microsoft Project to hide the time of day and only show dates. So I was going to show you, this is the task list. Then if I go to the resource table, here is the resource sheet view with some important columns. And then if I go to the assignment table, here are the task and resource assignments for the project. Okay, nothing too extraordinary there. So based on this data, now we can talk a little bit about preparing your Excel spreadsheet for import. So let me get back to my PowerPoint, and here are some of our best practice recommendations on how to set up the Excel workbook so that you get the best success with the import process. We believe that your Excel workbook should contain at least the following task columns. You should put in ID number and, very important, outline level, so that you can build your work breakdown structure with summary tasks and subtasks. You should obviously include task name, duration. Now, an optional column you can include is predecessors, and then resource names, so you get the names of the resources assigned to the tasks. Now, the process for importing project data into Excel to create a new project schedule was listed in the PowerPoint, so I won't go through all of these steps. So I think it would be better, again, folks, remember that in the Go To Webinar side pane, and let me get the exact name of that section for you, in the handouts section, there is the PDF of my PowerPoint, so I would encourage you to go there while I'm talking and download yourself a copy of the PDF. So let's go ahead and just do a demo for you. I think that will work the best. So in Microsoft Excel, let's go to Excel. Let me open a sample file. And this is for a project, Develop User Training for ERP. And this is probably the most common way that people start out with an Excel workbook, especially if you're migrating from Microsoft Excel over to starting to use Microsoft Project. What people generally will put in is task names. Sometimes they might put in durations. Most of the time, they'll just put in start dates, finish dates, and maybe resource names. Notice I've got durations as well. Notice also that I've used the Excel feature to indent some of these tasks to make them appear to be subtasks in these summary sections, or sometimes people call these headers, okay? So you can see those listed here. Now, let's import this into Microsoft Project, and we'll see what we get. So in Microsoft Project, I'll go ahead and click the Open button. Gets me into the Open dialog. Now here's a key in the lower right corner. Instead of projects, I want to look for Excel workbooks. And the one I want to start with first is the one that's open in Excel, Develop User Training for ERP, and this is the one that has dates in it. So when I click Open, bingo, here's the import wizard, the welcome page. We'll click Next. Now, it wants to know if there's a new map, or excuse me, it wants to know if I have an import map already created with the exact columns that are in the Excel workbook? No, I don't have one of those. So we're going to create a new one as we go. So I'll click Next. Here's where your three choices are. Do you want to import it as a new project, append the data, or merge the data? I'll show you those two in a little bit. So we'll click Next. Now, here's a key. Microsoft Project needs to know what kind of data will it find in the workbook. Now, what Microsoft Project is expecting is if you select tasks, you have a worksheet in the workbook that contains task data. If you want to import resource and assignment information, you also have to have separate worksheet tabs for each of these. Right now, I'm just focusing on the task information only. I do also want to leave the checkbox selected. Import includes headers. What that means is at the top of each column in Excel, there is a column header that identifies the type of data in that column, and that matches up with Microsoft Project fields or columns. So I'll click Next. Now, Microsoft Project, because of the way I named the Worksheet tab, Task Table 1, it immediately assumed that's where the task data is, and that is correct. But I want you to notice something interesting. In Excel, I have a field named, or a column named Task Name. But in Microsoft Project, it can't find that column. There is no column called Task Name. Now, you're going to say, Dale, I think you're losing your mind. In the Gantt chart view, for example, there is a column called Task Name. Ladies and gentlemen, Task Name is its nickname. It's a label. The real name of the column is Name. The real name of the column is simply called Name, and it includes task data. So notice the other columns match up just fine. Duration, start, finish, resource names, they also match up just fine. Down at the bottom, you can see a preview here. Shows you what the data will look like when imported. So we'll click Next. We come to the congratulations page where we have the option to save a map. Now, if you're importing a number of Excel workbooks and you have them all formatted the same, then you can save a map and give it a unique name, and that will help you to speed up the process. I'm not going to save the map this time. I'll do that a little later. So I'll go ahead and click Finish. Now, what I wanted to show you this, and prepare yourselves to be a bit disappointed. In the resulting Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Project schedule, I want you to notice the following. Number one, every task has a finish no earlier than constraint on it. That's because we included start dates and finish dates in the Excel workbook. Notice also that Microsoft Project did not create summary tasks based on the level of indent that we had in the Excel workbook. I'll just show you here. Look, see, course name, and then underneath these four should be indented. But in Microsoft Project, look, they're not indented. So that means we're going to have to build the work breakdown structure manually. Also, I want you to notice the duration that is imported doesn't match what was in the Excel workbook. Now, I'll just show you here. Course manual, 29 days. We look in Excel, it says 30 days. Well, how come? The reason is because I didn't include start times and finish times with the dates here. So Microsoft Project starts making assumption about what type of day those things are actually taking place. So what I want you to know is we've got the rudiments of a schedule here. I call it the schedule, the skeleton data is here. But at this point, it's going to take an awful lot of cleanup to get this project ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this, and I won't save it. And let's go back over to Excel, and I'll close this, and then let me open another one in Excel. I'll show you something a little bit different here. This time, notice what I have, ladies and gentlemen, are a couple additional columns. Number one, I have ID number. See them listed here, beginning with the first task. I also have the column, very important, outline level. This tells Microsoft Project course manual is at indent level 1. These tasks here are in indent level 2. That means they're going to be summary tasks. I do also have durations, but this time I'm including predecessors as well, just as if this were a Microsoft project file. And then lastly, I have resource names as well. So let's go ahead and try it again, shall we? So we'll go ahead and do open. Lower right corner, Excel workbook. We'll pick the one called dependencies. I'll open it. Click next, new map as a new project. We want just task data only. Now this time, because of the way I named the worksheet tab, Microsoft Project isn't sure which worksheet contains the task data. So I'll just click the pick list and choose task data. Now, ladies and gentlemen, look at here. Bingo. By the way, it recognized that task name equals the name column because I put the underscore in between task and name. Go figure. So everything is matching up fine. I'll click next. Not going to save the map again. Let's go ahead and just click finish. And bingo, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, looking better already. Looking better. In Microsoft Project, now look, the durations are the same. Look at here. See, durations are the same as they were, in the Excel workbook. Durations are the same, so that's good. Notice also dependencies have been set on the project for each task the way we wanted. The tasks are linked. Also notice that the outline level column helped Microsoft Project to get the level of indent correct for each of the subtasks. So we're doing good. We're doing good. Now, the only thing I want you to know is there are some limitations to the process of importing from Excel into Microsoft Project. So we won't get too hot and bothered about this. Here are some of the limitations. Number one, Microsoft Project will not specify the start date of the new project based on the dates of any of the tasks. Totally ignores that. It makes today the start date of the project. That means you must manually enter the start date in the project information dialog. Also, Microsoft Project will not display the project summary task, also known as task 0 or row 0. You have to do this manually by selecting the checkbox on the format ribbon. If your Excel workbook contains a start date and a finish date, the new project will contain a constraint on every task in the schedule. You will need to manually remove all of these constraints. And also, if you do not include the predecessors column in your Excel workbook, then you have to manually set task dependencies in your Microsoft Project schedule. All righty, so let me just show you in Microsoft Project. Here's what I will need to do. In Microsoft Project, I'm going to go to the Project ribbon, go to Project Information, and the start date of this project is actually out in September. It's September the 10th. So I'll go ahead and set my start date. There we go. Now look, all the dates are calculated. Then I'll go to the Format ribbon and I'll select the Project Summary Task check box. That'll let us see row 0. And then I'm going to change the title in row 0 to just Develop User Training for ERP. Bingo. And there we have it. So that would get the project a lot closer to being ready to go. All right, so let me go ahead and close this project. And let me close my current Excel spreadsheet. And then let me go ahead and I want to open a new Microsoft project schedule. And this one is Develop User Training for ERP Final. What I wanted to show you here next is how we could append the task list with Excel data. So let's go to Excel and we will open the sample file that has some new tasks in it. Now the directions are in the PowerPoint PDF. So again, I want to encourage you to download the PDF from inside of our GoToWebinar window. It's in the handout section. So here are the steps on how to append project data from Excel. So let's go ahead and give that a try. Wanted to let you know I do have things like ID, outline number. Here's some task names. Here's the names of resources. So in Microsoft Project, let's give it a try. I'll go ahead and open the open dialog. Again, I'll choose Excel Workbook. I'll choose the Excel Workbook with the new tasks. Here's the wizard. Click Next. New map. This time, append the data. We'll click Next. Task data, we'll click Next. We'll have to pick the workbook. Sometimes you have to do that. Here's the information. Everything is mapping correctly. We'll click Next. And then we'll go ahead and do Finish. Now, bingo, here's what happens. Microsoft Project will automatically import the new tasks at the bottom of the project schedule. From there, it's entirely up to you to decide where do they go, where in the schedule, are they linked, create summary tasks, and so forth. All right, so that gets the appended data in. Now let me go ahead and close this sample file. And I want to reopen it one more time. And last thing in the webinar is I want to show you how to import progress into your Microsoft project schedule. So here we go. I have the same sample file and it's got task progress. Now let me get to my PowerPoint. Importing task progress from Excel. This is probably the most challenging part of the Excel Microsoft project communication process. There are major limitations to what you can do with importing progress from Excel. For example, one thing you cannot do is you cannot import time-phased data from Excel. It simply matches columns with columns, so you can't capture things like the resource worked 8 hours on Monday, 6 hours on Tuesday, 4 hours on Wednesday. You cannot capture it at that level of granularity. So you just have to keep it real simple. So what we recommend is in your Excel workbook, do not include the predecessors column. Do not include that. Omit the predecessors column. And then include columns that are based on your method of tracking progress. Now, here's some of the columns you could use successfully. Actual start, percent complete, remaining duration, actual finish. Now, by the way, folks, that actually matches up with a real method of manually entering task progress in a Microsoft Excel workbook if you're entering the progress simply at the task level. Now, if you're capturing progress from individual team members, then what you have to do is you have to have an Excel workbook that shows assignment data that will include the name of the task, the name of the resource, and then you won't be able to use percent complete. You'd have to use percent work complete for the resources, and instead of remaining duration, you'd have remaining work. But you can do that. But again, this is the most challenging part of the import process. There's also something else I wanted you to know. During the import process, you also have to do an operation called setting a merge key. And the merge key is the column in Microsoft Project and Microsoft Excel that confirms to Excel which tasks to actually update. So I'll show you where this is. So in my Microsoft Project, let me get the, that's an Excel. All right, so in my Microsoft Project schedule, I'll go ahead and click Open. I'll choose the Excel workbook. We'll choose Task Progress this time. Comes the Import Wizard. I'll click Next. New map. This time we're going to merge the data into the active project. This is going to be task data. I'm just kind of keep it real simple since this is only a half-hour webinar. We'll click Next. We'll choose the workbook or worksheet again. There's the columns. See, I'm just doing a real simple import. By the way, I just wanted to let you know I've got ID, task name, resource name, and then percent complete. But here's where you could have actual start, percent complete, remaining duration, actual work. I could have done it that way too, captured a bit more information as well. So we'll just do the simple. I'll click Next. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I got in a rush here, and that's actually good. Look, it tells me you have to set a primary key for the import process to work. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's click OK. And basically what we have to tell Microsoft Project is which one of these columns in Excel will be the merge key. So what I'm thinking is we will choose the ID number because we have ID in Microsoft Project. See, there it is right over here. And in Excel, we have the ID numbers here. See them there as well. All right. So we'll do ID and we'll click the button Set Merge Key. Look at there. Merge Key ID, Merge Key ID. Now they know how to talk to each other. Then I'll click Next. And if I were going to be doing this over and over again, I would want to save this as a map. So I think I'm going to do that right now, and I'll show you how this works. When I click Save Map, here are the maps that are offered by default in Microsoft Project. Those are actually in your global.mpt file. That's where maps are saved, so you can use them with any project. So I'm going to call this Import Task Progress. Just Import Task Progress, and then I'll click Save. Bingo. And then I'll click Finish. And folks, there we go. Microsoft Project updated, and this is a couple weeks worth of progress. Updated task number 2, Write Module 1, that task is done. Write Module 2 is only half done. It looks like it's falling behind schedule. Create sample files for Module 1. It's marked as complete as well. Excuse me, everybody. So that's a very simplified overview of the import process. So let's go ahead and pause for questions now. We'll see if the folks have any questions for me. We'll look in the questions pane. Oh, looks like I see. I'm having trouble downloading the PDF, Jennifer says. I can't click or right click. Well, and you know what? I can email that out to you. Christopher says, I'm not seeing the handout. Yep. Folks, if those are your questions, you bet. This afternoon, I'll go ahead and send out the sample file to you. Want to make sure everybody gets it because I think that PDF is pretty important. So looks like no major questions. Folks, you've been a great group today. Thank you so much for coming to the webinar. I enjoyed doing it, revisiting a topic from many, many moons ago. So hope you have a good day, great afternoon. We'll see you later. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.